Hello and welcome back to the Red and White podcast. Today, unfortunately, couldn't get a Gillingham fan to join me, but I'm now joined by Sunderland Echo writer James Copley. James, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks for having us on.
No, mate, no problem at all. Thanks for coming on. But I did manage to get the chance to speak to a Gillingham fan, so I'm going to hopefully implement that in where I can. Henry Collier, who is a Gillingham fan and journalist, used to work for the club as well, I believe. I spoke to him earlier, and one of the things he said, James, was that the main player they rely on, the formation they play is 4-2-3-1. The main player they rely on tends to be Jordan Graham, who plays on the right of the three, who play just behind the striker, so a right winger. Essentially, saying that he tends to be the player who creates most of the chances for them. And I think it was a direct quote. He said that if you can keep him out of the game, then you've won half the battle, or something along those lines. Looking into that, then how do you see Callum McFadzean, who tends to spend a lot of his time going forward and leave us exposed at the back quite a lot? How do you see that matching up?
Yeah, I think if there's a weak link in Sunderland's defence, it's probably McFadzean. Although, as you say, he is quite good going forward. But Sunderland under Lee Johnson, we seem to have tightened up a little bit defensively. We seem to be a bit better, a bit more fluid as well. Obviously, with Sanderson. My colleague Phil Smith at the Echo is a massive fan of Sanderson, and I agree. I wonder if he could be an option at left back at some point. I know it's not his natural position, but Willison and Bailey Wright are so good together. Although I think Wright might be a doubt for the weekend because of his concussion. So Sanderson might come in, but it would be interesting to see a defence with possibly those three in it, whether it's a back four or a back five at some point. Because as I say, I do like McFadzean, but it is nice to have options. And I think if there is one weak link in the defence, it's probably left back, because Max Power has done so well at right back since he came in there, which we saw the game the other day with a nicely worked goal, which started from Power's forward passing.
Yeah, I was going to touch on Power a little bit later, and you brought up the point of centre backs there. I think at the moment we're just unlucky that we're getting so many injuries. I mean, Flanagan's still out. Willis seems to be all right for one game, all right for another. I'm not sure what's going on there, but it seems as if even he doesn't know what's going on with his knee. You then got Bailey Wright, who I think he picked up a concussion, so he's a doubt. We don't really know what's going on with him. It might even be that if we were to play Dion Sanders in the fullback, I might have to be that the player next to night to come in is Oliver Younger, who, in all fairness, so I think he had a decent game when he played against Fleetwood, and he came on against Portland over 10 minutes and didn't really put a foot wrong. So I do think, to me, he has earned a shot if he's next in line. It's not really ideal bringing in someone, but Dion Sanderson's a player who, when fans first started calling for him to come in at left back, I said, no, we've got a natural left back and Callum McFadzean there. Why on earth would you play an out of position player there? But the more that I'm seeing of Callum McFadzean, the more I'm seeing he's leaving us exposed out wide on the left. And I just think if you bring in Dion Sanderson, at the very least, he can defend. And as much as he's going to go forward and create lots of chances, and I think McFadzean, that's his main thing is going forward, putting crosses in. He seems to have pinpoint accuracy really when it comes across at times on O'Brien's head. I remember that his first game against Mansfield, his head is the crosses we were putting in. It just felt as if we had someone in the box to head them in. We could have came away from that game with loads of goals. But I think the primary job of a fullback has really got to be to defend. So that's frustrating me, really. That's why I'm starting to see, can we maybe push Sanderson in there?
Yeah, I think the thing with McFadzean is that he's bombing on to try and create that overload on the left hand side. Obviously, with McGeady drifting in a little bit, which is probably an instruction of Johnson, I'd imagine. But it's maybe about the right times to do it and picking and choosing. And I think we'll go back to Power again on the right. He chose the right time to get forward and create that overload. And the kids played for Bury and stuff like that. So it might take him a little bit of time to adjust to a sort of, I mean, not to sound a bit cheesy here, but like a Sunderland mentality, so to speak, and what's expected of him at the club, and and how to defend in League One for a team who are looking upwards rather than just looking to survive,
Yeah.
or looking to maintain the position. So I think it's definitely one of the more interesting aspects of Sunderland's squad at the moment, and like a little bit of a headache for Lee Johnson as well.
No, definitely. I think you put that quite well. It's just learning that balance of when to go forward and when to stay back. And it could be an instruction of Lee Johnson. I think one of the areas we are struggling in is converting possession into chances. I had to hear that we had 65% possession against Ipswich on Tuesday night, despite only in the first half registering 2 shots on target, one of which came right at the very end. We played 45 minutes of football and got 2 shots on target despite having over 60% of the possession. It's absolutely crazy. And I think that maybe causes the likes of Power and McFadden to have to go forward and challenge because the midfielders aren't doing it. An argument I keep making is if we're playing 4-3-3, you can't play 3 of Leadbitter, Winchester, Power or Scowen, because all 3 of those players, bar potentially Power, are defensive. Scowen, you know what you're getting with Scowen. He's going to run about the defensive and the midfield third, winning the ball back and just giving it to other players. Leadbitter, as much as he's great on the ball, he's not. We know with his age he's not going to be bursting forward. Powell, obviously, he's been playing right back anyway. In Winchester, all we haven't seen much of him. Doesn't look as if he's suited at going forward, getting into the final third and getting into the box, really. So I think if we're playing 4-3-3, that then forces the fullbacks to get forward, and that could be causing us to get exposed.
Yeah, I think the point you make about the midfield 3 is a very valid one, and it's something I've seen the Wise Men Say podcast lads talk about, and it is extremely true. Leadbitter, Scowen, and Winchester are all much of a muchness in terms of the style of play they are. Scowen does try and get forward a bit, but for me, as I say, it's the quality of possession that we're having, because you've mentioned the statistics there, and that's all well and good, but for me, it's very stop-starty. We seem to lose the ball. Ball retention isn't very good, so we do have a lot of the ball, but we seem to sort of waste the possession, give it away, then fight really hard to get it back, then build a couple, and it's losing the ball again, and it's very stop-starty, out for throw-ins, out for corners. There's no sort of, and I've bemoaned this for as long as Sunderland have been in League One, and I do believe it is possible in League One, but we don't really have control of the midfield in games. We never really seem to have that. I've never really seen a team have massive amounts of control in a game in League One, which
it's quite an open game.
Yeah, which is probably a symptom of the level Sunderland are at. But I think, and again, a lot of people, including the Wise Men Say podcast, and Phil Smith at the Echo, and myself, and a lot of other people have been calling for a bit of pace and dynamism in the midfield as well, because physicality and fitness are 2 very different things. And while I feel that Leadbitter and Scowen and Winchester are very fit, and they're very combative, they probably lack that sort of pace and power that you would want to see in the middle. And it would be nice for Sunderland to have a little bit of variety in that area, and a little bit of creativity as well. Not that the aforementioned trio aren't creative, but they're not really assisters, are they? In the way that somebody like Lyndon Gooch is. The person that really interests me in that sort of area, although he's more of a number 10, is Elliot Embleton. I'm a big fan of his. He got an assist recently, and I think if he's given a run of games, I think he could be the answer. Obviously, we saw him come on against Ipswich, so it's again another interesting headache for Lee Johnson.
Yeah, Embleton's a player. He's a funny one. I thought he had a huge impact when he came on Tuesday night. Actually, I think he became the cog going forward. And as much as we didn't score in the second half, I think if we were going, it would have came from Embleton. He made a lot of key passes, and I think he finds himself in nice areas of space. And when you are both-footed with the delivery he's got, you're a real challenge to defenders, and he's unpredictable. A player who I'm maybe more thinking along the lines of just coming back from his injury is Luke O'Nien. Now, I know he's been playing as a right back predominantly since he came down here, but I had a look at his time at Wickham, and his goal return and his chance creation was quite good. And I think the odd time we have pushed him further up the field, maybe as a box-to-box, a number 8 or even a number 10, he has contributed with goals to that standout, where his header against Southend that won the game, and his lob against MK Dons at home that won the game. 2 games that were quite close together, and he won us both of them with goals in and around the box. Would you not at all like to see him come in, because I think he can offer us, as you say, that pace and that bit tenacity that we're missing, as well to link the midfield to the final third?
No, definitely. I think he's due a run in that midfield spot, and I think he's earned it as well, because at right back he's shown he can go up and down quite well. Obviously, when you're playing at right back, the right side of the pitch is covered. So when he moves into midfield, he's going to have to maybe show a bit more awareness around him. But I think that's something he is capable of, because we saw it at Wickham, to be fair. So yeah, I think definitely he could do a job. I actually weirdly bumped in to Luke O'Nien before lockdown 3 at the the aquatic centre just after he'd done his injury, and bless him, he was working on his arm and working on his shoulder then, and it was only a couple of weeks after. So, like, in terms of professionalism, in terms of attitude, he's absolutely spot on from what I hear, and from just speaking to him the odd occasion as well. And a really good person to have around. So I think where he's been played as well, he's played at left back, he's played at right back, he's played left centre back, he's played as a number 8, he's played as a number 10. So I think it would be nice to see him given a shot in the middle. But listening to his, comments recently, and Lee Johnson's comments recently, nobody's really sure, including Luke, where his best position is.
Yeah.
He's a bit like a sort of League One Phil Neville. He sort of just he doesn't really have a fixed position, but he comes in and does a job. So yeah, I would definitely like to see him given a go in the middle.
Yeah, I think I would just even like to see him given 5 to 10 games as a run, because I think the odd time he has played there, he has impressed. And one thing we do know about him is he will always give 100% and commit to any job that he is given, whether it's right back, left back. We've seen him play at centre back. I feel as if we've seen him play everywhere, but he's at his natural position really, which to me is just coming in through the midfield off the strike, getting in and around the edge of the box. Another player who I think is causing a lot of debate recently. To me, he's probably our most improved player under Lee Johnson. You could potentially say White, but I think the signs were there with White under Parkinson. Really, it's been Aidan O'Brien, and I think what I was saying earlier with what we're struggling to link the midfield to the attack. I think when we play the 4-2-2 system, and you have O'Brien and White as a pairing up front together, I notice O'Brien seems to come out wide and come deeper a lot, and it just seems to link, as I say, the midfield to the defence a little bit more. And he's almost that like facilitator, that player who can bring it from deep, get it to White, and get it to the rest of the forwards, as well as him actually getting a couple of goals recently. It's his touch for me that he seems to have a real good knack of just taking the ball down and carrying it forward and giving it to someone else. Have you seen a marked improvement in him as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think he was disappointing when he first came in due to his pedigree, obviously coming from Millwall in the Championship and having scored so many goals in League One as well. You're expecting big things from him, and obviously it's always exciting to sign forward players. So his run and his upturn in form is definitely welcome, because while Charlie Wyke's doing brilliantly at the moment, and he's found his confidence and has found his game, I think he would even admit, and nobody would try to sort of kid that he's got his limitations like all players. He's not blessed with massive amounts of pace. What he's good at is holding the ball up, and he's good at scoring at the moment. I think O'Brien's got that little bit of pace, that little bit of energy. And I think we've seen as well, my colleague Mark Donnelly wrote a piece on the Echo about Charlie Wyke in this system can actually get into scoring positions, so he's not having to run the channels so often. He's not having to come and link the play, and people are getting close to him now as well. And O'Brien in that sort of even if he's coming off the right in the 4-3-3, a little bit of a free roll where power can come around the side and create that overlap. And then if one of the midfielders, drops into that space as well, whether it's Winchester or Ledbetter comes over and, they play some one-touch football in there, which they did against Ipswich. O'Brien's got a bit of quality about him in forward areas.
Definitely, as I say, I think he can be that missing link we've got just to facilitate the change when you're going from the midfield into the final third and then trying to get the ball in the box. So I think you're exactly right with White, where it's something I've picked up on, but I think now you've said it, I can realise it, where he's got a lot less responsibility. I've always said with White, well, not always, but very recently I've said with him, if you get chances to him within about 10 yards of the goal and he doesn't have to really turn, he will convert. Left foot, right foot, head, body, whatever, he will convert. He needs the chances given to him. He's not like Josh Maja, who can create something out of nothing. He's not, he needs the ball to bounce to him in the right moment. But if you do it, he will convert. And I think because he, as you say, he doesn't have to get out wide anymore and drop into the midfield and work as hard as he used to. He can just kind of relax inside the box and wait for the ball to drop to him, really. And I think that's why we're starting to see such a marked improvement in him.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, in Mark's piece, which I would recommend giving a read, too, he's still touching the ball the same amount in the box, but the difference is his back's not to goal anymore, and it's coming more in and around the 6-yard area, not just on the edge of the box laying it off and hoping something will happen. And if he's up there and he's a big lad and he's pressing their defenders back and he's pinning their defense back, it's I would rather him doing that, and I would rather him be and Lee Johnson's touched on this as well, the whole jargon with Pomo and stuff like that. You'd rather him be in between those two goalposts rather than by the corner flag trying to win the ball, because that's, he's no good there. There's no point having him there, because whilst he'll do a job and he'll be a willing runner, if he's on the right wing or left wing chasing a nothing ball down, who's in the box to put it in?
Yeah, another player, I guess, who has had a bit of controversy, another forward, would be Jack Diamond. Now, when he came in, I think everyone was excited. He scored those 2 goals, I think it was, against Lincoln, and he seemed to be the only player who had, bar potentially Gooch, who just had this raw, dynamic energy of going forward and bringing that intensity in the final third and running at players. And I think we maybe thought McGeady could do that, but it seems as if he's dropped off just a little bit. And I think he's struggled to get back up to full fitness, which, in all fairness from he is in his mid-30s. And, of course, the break that we had around Christmas time and him being frozen out the squad for a year has its impact on his fitness. I'm not going to deny that, but I'm starting to notice with Jack Diamond his deliveries aren't the best, and if we do want to get chances to Wyke, we need good deliveries. Do you see him as a player who can play the full 90 or maybe just come on for the last kind of 20 minutes at the moment, and while he works in his delivery just to offer us that something different, something new?
I think it's good to have options, and with a player like Diamond as well, you're going to have to take the rough with the smooth, because he is raw, he is pacey, but like all young players, his decision making will probably let him down, and so will his final ball. So I think he'll come back in at some point. There's a lot of games we're going to be playing Saturday, Tuesday, and then Papa John's Trophy games and stuff like that. So I think there'll be games and opportunity for him. But yeah, there probably will be times where and games where Lee Johnson probably thinks it's better if he isn't in there, and that's not sort of to disparage Jack Diamond. I think that's just the case with all young players, and obviously with Lyndon Gooch coming back into the fold as well, there's real options around there in terms of the 4-2-2-2 and then the 4-3-3. Maybe if he wants to go 5 at the back again, but then you're looking at O'Brien, Wyke, McGeady, Gooch, Jack Diamond, Embleton, all for those forward positions. Danny Graham when he comes back, Will Grigg if he stays, and that's before any sort of potential incomings if we manage to get any in before the window shuts. So I think he might have to be patient at times, but I think he will definitely get games. And he's a player that's exciting. He's got a bit of quality about him. He's a local lad, so I think it's sort of one of those where it's nice that he's in and around the squad after we saw him a bit in pre-season and then Parkinson didn't play much. So I think it's good for fans to see his involvement, but I think we'll have to be patient with him as well, because he's not going to deliver the goods all of the time. Neither is Elliot Embleton, because they are young players. Although Embleton is a bit older than Jack Diamond and a bit more experienced, but Diamond's shown us what he can do, and Lee Johnson's well aware of what he can do. So if a game's stretched or we're chasing a lead or whatever, or there's space to attack, Jack Diamond's ideal to come on for the last 30 minutes. But I also think he's definitely good enough to start games as well.
Yeah, with the way Gillingham tend to set up 4-2-3-1, 2 defensive midfielders, obviously it's a formation we are quite familiar with, and we used to use it as quite an attacking way. But with them playing target man football, their striker being 6'2", and he is apparently a target man. When I spoke to Henry earlier, I think we can expect that it's going to be another similar story of plenty of possession. And as much as you say, it doesn't tell the full story, I think we will have plenty of possession and maybe not control the game, but have plenty of the ball, and they are going to be sitting off us a little bit. And I think those are the types of games where you don't want Jack Diamond playing, because it comes down to the moments of quality of balls in the box. Whereas maybe when it's going to be a bit more of a competitive game, you can allow him to play to almost kind of embrace the unpredictability of it. If you're playing against another side that's going to be up there, and it's going to be 50-50 going back at each other and quite counter-attack, and that's when you use a player like him who's got a bit more, he's quite a bit more raw, a bit more dynamic, and he can just sprint at players. Whereas it might pay dividends to have someone like Gucci, whose final ball is maybe a bit more quality.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you're playing somebody like Gillingham who are going to sit in, then when Sunderland do get the ball forward, obviously you want to make it count. And we've seen a couple of times recently, as you say, Jack Diamond final ball lets him down. So the Gooch one's really interesting, because I think he's like 5th or 4th in the League One assist table. I think George Honeyman's top.
George Honeyman's top, I know that, yeah. I'll have a look.
George Honeyman's top, and I think Lyndon Gooch is about 5th, and he's got 2 less assists than Honeyman or 3 less assists than Honeyman, but he's played something daft like I think it's about 500 minutes less. So it'll be really interesting to see how he does when he comes back in because I'm a big fan of Gooch and he's shown that he can produce big moments of quality to win games for Sunderland. So he scored a couple of good goals this season. Obviously, his goal against MK Dons last season stands out. So I sort of good selection headaches for Lee Johnson at the moment.
Yeah, I can't find Gooch in the top assists, but I had it down not too long ago that he was creating a chance. I think he was creating 0.8 chances every game, which is there or thereabouts, a chance a game. And if you can have a player you can almost certainly just on his own create a chance every game, that is a nice kind of security net, I guess, to work off, especially with the way that Wyke seems to be converting. I believe the statistic is 11 shots on target, 7 goals since Lee Johnson came in. It doesn't get much better than that, really.
Yeah, so I've just found the stats. So George Honeyman has 7 assists, which is the most in League One, 3 goals this season. Lyndon Gooch is Sunderland's top assister in League One with 5, so that's 2 behind Honeyman. But Gooch has played 1,113 minutes to Honeyman's 1,974. So
Yeah.
in terms of effectiveness, Gooch is probably right up there in the league at the moment in terms of assists to minutes. Assists to minutes.
I mean, a common theme in this conversation has been that we're struggling with linking the midfield to the attack and creating chances, really. But we seem to be only getting, 3, 4 shots on target at most in a game. But we mentioned there's a player who clearly is one of the most creative players in the league. He's just falls behind the top assister in the league despite having significantly less game time. Is he then the key? And with him being out, he had his positive test. I think there was a problem before that as well, kind of when Johnson first came in, maybe injury or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. You might know yourself, but for him to come back in now, does that just solve our problems? And if we do play 4-3-3, do we potentially play him as one of the kind of like number 8s, I guess, coming in for Scowen, or Winchester if we're going to play Ledbetter as well, or do you even put him as one of the kind of front 4 in the 4-2-2? I would take McGeady out myself because I just don't see what he's been contributing recently.
Yeah, I think Gooch had a foot problem, and then with the COVID outbreak, he was on the bench against Wimbledon just after the COVID outbreak, which was well ahead of time. Shouldn't really been on. I think he got on in that game as well. I can't quite remember, but he could well be the answer to all of our problems. But it's keeping him fit. I think we know McGeady blows hot and cold, and we know he's a maverick and a personality, and perhaps he does need a couple of games on the sidelines and sort of use him sparingly and bring him in. One player that doesn't seem to start much under Lee Johnson, of course, is Chris Maguire, who I didn't mention earlier. He's capable of quality as well. So real options, and there's going to have to be rotation. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gooch plays out wide on the wing. It wouldn't surprise me if he even comes, if sort of Johnson gambles and plays Gooch maybe as a number 10 and has, 2 really defensive minded midfielders for some games. Because one thing we've seen with Johnson, he's a bit like Jack Ross in his early reign before Jack Ross got sort of bogged down in the sort of one system, although he did try to change it to the 4-4-2.
Yeah, definitely.
Towards the end of his reign. Jack Ross was very sort of fluid and flexible when he first came into Sunderland. He changed it against Charlton in the first day. He was always tinkering. I think Lee Johnson is similar, but he seems to be a bit more tactically astute because he's obviously Jack Ross was coming in English football from Scotland and whatnot and was learning on the job, whereas Lee Johnson's been at this level and he's managed above this level in the Championship. So I think he understands what League One football's like. Maybe he's a bit more. And I think the positives now are where we can see the changes that have been implemented in terms of Wyke. We can see what Lee Johnson's told Wyke to do, which is nice. And we can see what he's telling Max Power to do at right back. So we're starting to see those little things that are winning Sunderland games. It's just whether we can sort of get control of a full 90 minutes and not give the ball away as much.
Yeah, definitely. I think he did make quite a fair point there, really. We're coming into the transfer window. Obviously, we've discussed quite a lot in terms of players who how I think we're doing. I think just on Maguire quickly, I think he's been quite poor recently. He does this thing where he he'll play out 5 games, you'll get a goal and an assist in just about every game, but then he'll drop completely off for 10 games and give you nothing. And that's not necessarily criticism. I think it's just an observation. But I think you just need to learn to manage that as a manager, and you need to have other players in there to come in, and maybe Gooch is the player. On Gooch as well, maybe potential playing as an attack midfielder and 2 defensive ones. I think I would rather play Gooch as the central and then 2 as the other, just kind of sitting back than playing 3. Yeah, all 3 of them being defensive. I think that makes more sense. It's a bit of a gamble, but there's a bit more logic to it. But in terms of the transfer window, I mean, to me, it's blatantly obvious. To me, I think we need a creative midfielder. You know, as much as we have maybe some players in the team who can create, I don't see any player where I can think he'll create a chance today, confirmed. As well as that, a left back will be great before Hume comes back. And that would actually alleviate some stress at centre back as well. I think if we have a left back, it puts less pressure on them, because then the likes of Flanagan, when he comes back, can also play there. And you know, you have more options at centre back. Dion Sanderson can pull in there. If you had to say, if you could choose, you know, any position that we bring a player in, where would it be?
Well, that's a tough one. Centre back, I think we're pretty well stocked. But we do have a lot of midfielders, but that's an area we do need variety in, as you said. And to be honest, we need variety up front as well. Will Grigg looks like he could go. I mean, if he stays, I don't think anybody's got much confidence in him coming good. But you never know. But you're looking at White or Danny Graham at the moment, really, and I'm not a big Danny Graham fan, to be honest. I wasn't a fan of his signing, and even if I thought he was any good, he's very similar to White. So you just wonder if Sunderland could maybe, you know, get a young, pacey forward on loan from somewhere. I don't have any names to mind, but I think that would be my
Semenyo type
go-to.
player.
Yeah, but obviously possibly a little bit better, or if he's, because whoever comes in, if Charlie White stays fit, they're going to have to accept that they're going to be coming on for maybe the last 20 minutes, or they're not going to be playing. Charlie White's the informed striker in pretty well in League One and the Championship at the moment, so he's it's going to be hard to dislodge him from the start 11. But yeah, I think, and left back as well, if Hume's out for a little while yet, and you know, we've got McFadzean in there, there's no real cover for him unless Sanderson comes over. But then in terms of defenders, with Flanagan still being out, you're a couple of injuries away from a crisis, because obviously we've got Bailey Wright, who's out with a concussion. Jordan Willis's tendonitis in his knees, you know, that's a bit of a problem that needs to be managed. So a couple of defenders away, and then, yeah, as you said right at the beginning, you're starting to have to rely on Oliver Younger. So I think, although Sunderland have a really bloated squad with a salary cap, there's not much room for manoeuvre. So some players would have to leave. But I think we could do with some covering areas and some variety as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's too many areas to pinpoint one. I think it will be an attack midfielder myself, but then again, you say we could do a bit of pace up front to just stretch defenders. We could do with the left back, just someone to cover Hume when he's out, because I think McFadzean is a good wing back, but I think as full back he tends to get exposed. But maybe that can be coached. You know, maybe it can be, and even centre back we could just do with another option there. I think centre back in terms of quality, we probably haven't got many other areas. We've got more quality in with Bailey Wright and Jordan Willis. I would argue 2 of the best centre backs in the league. It's more that, you know, they're both injury prone, and as is everyone. You know, even Flanagan seems to pick up a few injuries. So it's definitely an interesting one. But I think to wrap it up, going into the game, Henry, the Gillingham fan, I'm speaking to him, predicted 1-1. Gillingham scored 30 goals, conceded 30. Their form is really inconsistent. They won 4-1 in the last game. I think all of that considered, I do think they will sit off us. I don't think they're going to challenge us much. They didn't score the last time we played them. I think if we can keep the lad not on the right wing quiet, I can't see them creating much. That just comes down to McFadzean being able to mark him. Prediction for the game, I'm going to go with 1-0 myself.
Yeah, I think we've scored the same amount of them in the league this season. We've got 30 goals as well, but obviously they've conceded 13 more. They've conceded 30 to our 17. So going on that and going on the form, I don't think they'll score against us, but I could be wrong. I think we'll beat them 2-0. I think it'll be comfortable. I'm hoping anyway.
I think 2-0's, I don't know, I mean, I think it's, I'm just struggling to see us, to be honest, getting 2 goals in any game at the moment, and that's just because I don't think we're converting the possession into shots on target, and I think we're largely relying on that. White only really needs one chance to score at the minute, but I guess so. I think sometimes if you get an early goal, you can then stretch teams, and if Ipswich hadn't got the player sent off, funnily enough, maybe that would have actually played in our favour once we'd got the first goal, because they would have maybe come at us just a little bit more and left holes at the back, maybe as silly as that seems. But we're seeing it against Lincoln, where if you do get one goal against teams and they come on, you can just pick them apart. So potentially, yeah.
I think as well, with back-to-back wins and back-to-back clean sheets, although, as you say, the Ipswich one was aided by that horrendous Caden Jackson tackle, which was ridiculous. They'll have picked the confidence back up, and obviously they've bounced back well from that disappointing result against Plymouth Argyle. So I reckon Johnson will be really working on them these next couple of days. I reckon he'll have them full of confidence, and obviously winning breeds confidence as well. So that's where the 2-0's coming from. But with Sunderland, it's a 1-1 draw is just as likely.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was that. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for coming on, James. Thank you everyone for listening. Be back for the next preview.